Hi there, my name is Toby, and on this video I'm going to try and answer a very big question, and that is, what is ether? Or what is the ether? It's really a "the". And if I can answer this question today, I'm also going to be answering what is energy and what is matter. You see, modern science has not even answered this. They have not said what is energy, and they have not said what is matter, what is material substance. You see, energy is defined as the ability to do work, something like that. But that doesn't tell you anything. The ability to do work, but what is work? Well, work is energy. Yeah, but what is energy? Energy is the ability to do work. Yeah, but what is work? You see, they're just describing it. They're talking about it in another way, but they haven't said what it is. What is it? The same as matter. What is matter? Well, it's a material substance. Yeah, but what's a substance? Well, a substance is matter. Yeah, but what is matter? It's a substance. Look, it doesn't tell you anything. What is it? Now, they're getting closer. They're trying to say now that matter and energy are the same thing. But you haven't defined what matter is. You haven't defined what energy is. Now you're saying they're the same thing. But still, what is that thing? What is that thing that they are? You still haven't said it. Well, that thing that they are is ether. Everything is ether. But modern science has dismissed it. They don't like that word. But they cannot dismiss it. You've got to understand this. They cannot. See, quantum physics, there's a lot of ideas in there, but they're all just models, mathematical models, trying to explain the universe, but they cannot do it. They can't explain it. And it gets more and more complicated. But you see, they come up with about 50 different words, 50 different euphemisms for the ether. They still have to have it. They talk about dark energy, dark matter, quantum flux, quantum foam, 0-point field, all sorts of stuff. All of these are just other words for the ether, but they just don't want to say it. But they have to. You need something to explain how the universe works, and without it, you just can never get there. And ether is a very, very interesting concept. It's a bridge. It's a bridge between the metaphysical world and the physical world. That's why it's so important. Modern science has totally dismissed metaphysics. It doesn't believe in it. And that's what I talk about on this channel. I talk about the chi energy, the life force energy, or the ether. And I talk about it physically in exercise, because it connects to your body. I talk about it spiritually, because it connects to your soul, spirit. I talk about it philosophically, and of course scientifically, which is what I'm doing here today. I'm talking scientifically about the ether. But what is it? Let's start by defining it. So the ether is quite difficult to define. It's an infinite abstract thing. Again, it's an assumption. We have to assume that the universe is here and it's made of something. Let's assume that the whole universe is made of one substance, one thing, and we're going to call that one thing ether. Now, look at this philosophically. There's only ever been two serious arguments about the universe. Only ever been two. Of course, there's been thousands of ideas about the universe, but there's only ever been two serious ones. And these boil down to two philosophical standpoints. There is dualism and there is monism. Now, dualism says that there are two things in the universe. We've got consciousness, soul, spirit. So we have to acknowledge that. You know, if we take a basic observation, what have we got? We can all see this. Well, we've got stuff called matter. Here it is. But we're also alive. We're thinking. We've got consciousness. You have to acknowledge that. And it's proven now that consciousness will exist outside the body. There's been plenty of people that have died, completely died, come back again, and they can tell you what happened. They had an experience. So something happened outside of life of the body. We've got plenty of proof of that. So we have to acknowledge there is soul, spirit, and there is matter. But this is still dualism, two different things. And that gives another problem. It still hasn't answered the problem, what is matter, and then what is soul, spirit. Now you've got to explain two things. And that's difficult. And then furthermore, if these are two separate things, the soul, spirit, and then the material world, how do they interact? Because they're two mutually exclusive substances. How can they can't interact together? That's another problem. So dualism, that philosophy, is fundamentally flawed because already there's too many problems with it. You still haven't said what is matter, you still haven't said what is soul, spirit, and then you still haven't said how these two can possibly ever interact. So that leaves you monism. Monism is field theory, is the ether. The universe is comprised of only one thing. So already that's simpler. You're still making an assumption, it's still a model, but the model says there's one thing. The whole universe is one thing, that is ether. And that ether, well, that is consciousness. We have to acknowledge the soul spirit. So the soul spirit, it is ether. But you still have this material world, so somehow this material world is also ether. This has also got to be made up of the same substance. But how does it then work? How can this possibly work? Well, let's go back at it one step further back. Really, this is ancient philosophy. It's very similar to Taoist philosophy, and it's similar to all the creation stories. And even in religions, you've got different creation stories in religions. But religions, they're sort of what you might call it secularized metaphysics. They're sort of organized metaphysics. They still become an organization, a human power structure. The same as a cult. A cult is a sort of human organization that's become an artificial power structure. See, true metaphysics, true science, there's no power structure, there's no organization to it. It's just a way of thinking. It's a scientific process. And metaphysics is part of that scientific process. So there's no organization with it, there's no religion to it. It's purely logical thinking, deductive reasoning. It has to be. But the way we can define ether, because it's such a difficult thing to define, is we have to use many different words. So ether, chi, prana, life force energy, these ones we already know. We sort of got a feeling. It's still talking about energy, but it's living energy. It's a bit more mysterious. But I still haven't defined what energy is. So we're still calling it energy. But they're better words. Now there's an ancient Greek word called inertia. Inertia. Now that means pure potentiality. Infinite potential. See, in science, modern science, inertia means rest. This thing is now at rest. It's at inertia. If I lift it up like this, I've given it some energy. I've taken it away from inertia. But if I drop it, it's going to return back to inertia, where there's no energy. So we think inertia means rest, no energy. But the real definition of the word inertia is infinite energy, infinite potential. See, this thing is at rest, but it has infinite possibilities. Anything could happen to this. I don't know what could happen. If I give it some energy, now it's got a limitation. Now it's got a potential. Something's going to happen. If I let go, it's going to fall. That's it. So its energy is now limited. It has become limited. Here it is unlimited. Anything can happen. Here, only one thing can happen. It's going to fall down. But now it's back at inertia. It's unlimited. Infinite potential could happen to this. So the true definition of inertia is infinite potentiality. And that is the ether. So inertia is a better word. But my favourite word is spirit. I like the word spirit. See, spirit implies metaphysics. Spirit implies the soul, consciousness, awareness, life. But it also implies metaphysics. The spirit is not physical. You can't locate it in 3 dimensions. It has no space. It is not in, you can't say, oh, there's spirit, there's spirit. Spirit is outside 3-dimensional space. It is non-Cartesian. It is abstract. But it is true, it is real, because consciousness is real. What did he say? I think, therefore I am. And again, there's another serious modern philosophy called the cosmological anthropic principle. And they're serious physicists thinking about this. And they say, well, the universe cannot exist without consciousness being there to see it and experience it. So spirit is ether. It is inertia. It is chi. It is ether. It is life force. It is infinite potentiality. But that also implies that the universe is infinite in its nature. If spirit is infinite and everything in the universe is made up of this ether, this spirit, therefore the universe is also infinite. But it still hasn't quite explained what is this material world. What is matter then? What is matter? And it hasn't explained things like, it still hasn't explained energy. What is energy? Except here in this, you can see now, this is an analogy, but here, like I said, it's at rest. This is pure ether, infinite potentiality. Now I've created energy. From the ether, if I lift this up, I've created some energy, a potential, a movement. And now, if I let go, it's going to fall down. That energy is going to disappear back to the ether. Disappear back to earth, inertia. So what has happened is this is a process of entropy. Created energy, energy disappears again. You see, this is the problem with modern science. We're saying that energy cannot be created or destroyed. Well, no, it can. Quite literally. Look, this thing has got no energy. It's at rest, inertia, or rather infinite potential. I now lift it up. I have created energy. I've literally created it. I drop it, the energy is destroyed again, it's gone. I've created energy, it's destroyed itself, it's gone. You see, I have to lift it up. I am consciousness. I am a living being. Consciousness has done some activity to create some energy. Now, if I let go and it falls down, I'm no longer holding it. I have separated my consciousness away from it. Now, all by itself, it will just return to inertia. That is now entropy. So me, consciousness, metaphysics, I come from the metaphysical realm, apply something to the physical realm, I create some energy, then if I retreat again, the physical realm all by itself is entropic. Entropy will return down. So all modern science is based on this entropic energy. Energy returning to inertia. It doesn't explain anything about how energy is created. Consciousness acting upon the material realm creates energy. So, again, you've got to think a bit laterally. You're going to have to think about this. But what it means is ether is pure spirit, and this pure spirit is pure consciousness. Pure consciousness is thought. It is also logic. Mathematics is in there. So mathematics is pure consciousness. It's a process of consciousness. You can't have mathematics without consciousness. But mathematics always exists. It's outside space and time. Ask any mathematician, they'll have to admit it. Yeah, mathematics always exists. So if mathematics always exists, the ether always exists, the metaphysical world always exists. So the universe always exists. There's no beginning to the universe. You cannot say mathematics began one day. No, mathematics is always true, always was here. It's outside space and time. So if mathematics always exists, the universe always exists. So there's no Big Bang. You can't have an initial creation moment. Can't have it. What is happening is continuous. See, I've created energy, and then it's gone away again. I've created it, it's gone away again. That is the creation moment. It's happening all the time, every moment. So, how can we define energy? How can we define energy? Well, if ether is inertia, is spirit, it's pure potentiality, infinite potential, but it's consciousness, it's metaphysical, something happens in that consciousness to create energy. Something happens. Now, what happens? In that consciousness, in that field of ether, there's a disturbance, a movement, there's a desire. Remember, consciousness is living. It is feeling as well. Feelings are not physical. You can have I might feel something, like I've got physical anxiety, something happens in my body, but the actual subjective experience of anxiety is not physical. Same with love. I can feel love, it will have some chemical reaction in my body, but the actual feeling of love is not physical. We cannot define it, cannot prove it. So there are feelings. Feelings are also in the ether, or part of the ether, part of spirit. So there is a feeling in the spirit, a desire. That desire creates a movement in the spirit. That movement is a vibration. Something happens. It's a divergence, like this. Here, this is pure ether. It's at rest. But I have a desire, a feeling to do something. So my desire causes me to do something. So when I do this, I create energy. A limited potential of energy is created, limited. When I release it, it returns back. So energy is created from the ether through desire. Or the ether, there is a divergence of the ether. That's the other way to look at it. I can have an elastic band, it's at rest. A divergence means I stretch the elastic band, I create some energy. Energy is in the elastic band. But I have to stretch it. I am a living being, consciousness, I stretch the elastic band. Then I let go, it goes back again. So the ether, pure infinite potential, there's a divergence created, a limited potential, that we can call energy. And when I let go of it, it returns back, that we can call entropy. It's returning back to inertia. So energy is a divergence of the ether, or a vibration in the ether, a disturbance in the ether. So that's what energy is. And energy has a function. The function is to return back to inertia. It wants to go back. If I stretch the elastic band, it wants to go back. So that's why energy seems to be autonomous. But it's not autonomous. Remember, energy is created and it is destroyed all the time. It goes completely against modern science. See, the first law of thermodynamics does not apply to ether. It only applies to entropic energy. See, if I give this shell, by lifting up a limited amount of energy, that's the only energy it's got, it can only fall. Now, in the process of falling, it can't do anything else. That energy must be conserved. That's the first law of thermodynamics. But me lifting it up, I'm coming from outside the system. I am the ether, pure spirit, outside of the system, and I apply energy to it. Now, how much I apply, you can't say. There's no way of knowing that. There's infinite potential for energy to be created. Infinite potential for energy to be created. That is the ether. That is the ether. Infinite energy. Now, how do you get that? Because if you can get that, that is a free energy machine. But it's a totally different science. Remember, the science we've got is entropic. It has to, that's all we got. Yeah, I know once it's here, that's all we got. But how do we get it here? And how do I lift it higher? Totally different idea. That has to come from spirit. Again, hard one to wrap your head around. It's easier to understand as I'm a living being because I've got a body. And again, a scientist will argue, yeah, but you've lifted a shell up. You have not created that energy. You've given it kinetic energy. I've used my arm to lift it up and then drop it down. Okay, well, now, again, I've talked about this before. You have to do a very detailed calculation if you want to prove this. You have to calculate, right? You have to calculate how much energy do I burn to lift my hand up? How many calories do I burn in my body to lift my hand from here to here? It's going to be a minuscule amount of calories. Okay, you have to get that figure. So say I burn 10 calories to lift my arm up from here to here. Then I have to calculate how many calories do I burn to lift this shell up from here to here. So I might burn 10 calories to lift my arm to here. But to lift this shell is only a bit more. I might burn 11 calories to lift this shell up. But lifting my arm doesn't count. That doesn't count. Can't include that. So really, it's only 1 calorie of energy to lift this shell up. Because I've got to discount my arm. That doesn't count. Lifting my arm up by itself is 10 calories. Lifting it with a shell is 11 calories. So it's really only 1 calorie difference to lift this shell up. So in theory, I've given this 1 calorie of energy. But then you have to calculate how many calories does it have when it falls down. How much potential energy has it been given? And I put it to you, that's going to be more than 1 calorie. That's quite a strong drop. It might be, I don't know, 50 calories to fall down. So if you're going to go by your science, first law of thermodynamics, if I exert 1 calorie to lift it up, it must only have 1 calorie to fall down. It must be equal. It won't be equal. Won't be equal. Because it's complicated. I'm now a living being. There's stuff going on here. It's a difficult calculation to work out. You can't build a robot to do this, because a robot will use electrical energy. You can actually map that more detailed. But the problem is, I have to build a robot. Consciousness has got to do some work to create a machine to lift this up. You see, you have to have consciousness. Consciousness creates technology. It's a different philosophy. We sort of understand it. We just, yeah, well, of course we create technology. But we don't understand consciousness is also the power behind the technology. It's the same energy. It's literally the same energy. This is potential energy and gravity, but it's the same energy that I'm giving it from my consciousness. It's the same energy. All energy is derived from spirit, consciousness, ether. So let's go back. Ether is pure potentiality, infinite potential. All possibilities are available, but it is conscious, it is spirit, it is the soul. So it is also feelings, it's also mathematics, it's also imagination. All of that is in ether. Metaphysics. Then energy is a movement, a divergence, a vibration in that ether. And it's a limited potential. Limited. Now what is matter? And now here's the next one. What is matter? Well, you have to go a little bit deeper, but let's look at it this way. The ether, you can think of ether again. It's the yin-yang. The yin-yang, the tai chi. In the Tao, they've got a term called the wu-chi, the pregnant void. Everything emerges from the wu-chi, the emptiness. So from the wu-chi, the emptiness, the yin-yang appears, yin and yang, 2 things moving. There's 2 aspects to the energy. And what is the yin and yang that appears from the wu-chi? Well, it's the same. From the ether appears the yin-yang. What is the yin-yang that appears from the ether? It is electricity and magnetism. This is the yin-yang. Electricity and magnetism. And again, it works like this. Imagine an elastic band, the ether, at rest, pure potentiality, inertia. A divergence happens, I stretch the elastic band. This creates a potential of energy. This divergence we can call electricity, or dielectricity, static electricity. It's a charge, but it's a potential of energy that wants to go back. It's not so much plus and minus, but it's more like charge, it moves out, and discharge, it goes back. So charge is created, a potential. But as this potential, this elastic band stretches, remember, it immediately wants to pull back. See, I, as consciousness, ether, pull the elastic band. So consciousness, the ether, is applying a divergence. And this is creating energy. I am pulling the elastic band. But the moment I, consciousness, let go, I retreat. Now the elastic band is left all by itself. The elastic band, now there is a limited potential of energy. Electricity is created. But what happens? It wants to go back to inertia. There's a force that pulls it back. That force is magnetism. It's a field. So you have electricity is created by ether, is diverting the ether. There's a divergence. But this divergence automatically creates a force to pull it back. And if I, consciousness, let go, that force, magnetism, will pull it back. So there's 2 things happening, but they happen together. It's a conjugate pair, the yin and the yang, electricity and magnetism. So the ether, pure potential, metaphysical field, it's everywhere and nowhere. It's spirit, it's consciousness, it's feelings, it's mathematics, it's pure geometry, abstract geometry, not physical geometry. That then creates electricity as it diverges, but immediately creates magnetism as it wants to pull back. So electricity and magnetism are created together, and what you have then is a vibration. You have a divergence and a convergence, divergence and a convergence, a pulsation. That is energy, frequency, vibration. That is now light. Light is a vibration, a disturbance of the ether. The ether is this fluid field of spirit moving, interplaying. It's infinite, but all stuff going on. And at some places, that vibration is actually becomes electromagnetism. So we can call electromagnetism is the limited appearance of the ether. Or electromagnetism is energy, a limited potential created from the unlimited ether, infinite potential. Or again, energy is a divergence of the ether. Energy is a disturbance in the ether. Movement in the ether. Something is moving, creates a disturbance, and that disturbance flows through the ether. Quite literally the force. I feel a disturbance in the force. And matter, now how does matter build up? Well, from electromagnetism, there is a frequency, and this is light. Again, it's just a disturbance in the ether. Everything is a disturbance in the ether. But at a certain frequency, but there will be a certain frequency in which this wave, very fast, it's got to get faster and faster, super high frequency, so it's way beyond gamma radiation. If you look at the electromagnetic spectrum, it's got to go way, way beyond that. Very high frequency, the electromagnetic wave will loop back. So it'll go so far. You imagine a wave going like this, and then it gets faster and faster and faster. And suddenly it's so fast, but it actually sort of loops back on itself, and it will create its own self-sustaining wave. Its own sphere, its own ball, its own loop. So there will be one standing wave for the ether. A vibration of the ether at a particular speed will create a self-sustaining wave, a sphere. So this will be a particle. So this is the creation of matter. It's still just the ether. It's still just a vibration of the ether, a divergence of the ether. But it's a divergence in the ether in such a way that it's self-sustaining. A little ball, a little sphere of ether spinning around, vibrating. And in fact, what you've got there is a vortex. In the middle, it's spinning around a vortex. So something's going to be spinning around a vortex. What's it spinning around? Well, it's spinning around a point of inertia. See, remember, this energy is created, and it wants to go back to the inertia. Here's ether at rest, inertia. Vibration happens. The vibration goes out, but where's it going? Remember, it wants to go back. The ether wants to go back to inertia. It's gone out, but it's going out. It's trying to find its way back to inertia. What's happening in a loop? It's trying to get back to inertia. It's trying to get back to inertia, but the point of inertia is in the middle. So it's going round and round and round the point of inertia, but it can't get back. It can't collapse in. The only way it will get back to inertia is if this spinning circular wave is knocked or destroyed, then it will break, and then the energy can dissipate back to inertia. But as it is, it's caught in a loop, trying to get back to the midpoint, and it can't. So now it's a self-sustaining wave of the ether, and we can call this a particle. And there is only one. There can only be one particle because there is only one standing wave solution of the electromagnetic field. And there is only the electromagnetic field because that is simply a divergence of the ether. There is only the ether. Remember, there is only the ether. All of this is only ether, nothing else. And I'm trying to explain to you how ether translates into matter. So first thing, the ether diverges, becomes energy. It diverges at a certain speed, it becomes a particle. And this is proven in black holes emit neutrons. So very high energy comes out of a black hole, high frequency, you get neutrons coming out. So this particle is a neutron. It's a neutron. And again, very interesting, the neutron will decay into a proton. All free-floating neutrons eventually become a proton. But a proton is the same thing. It's the same thing as a neutron. Identical particle, but the way I see it, a neutron is a certain balance, perfect balance. A proton has got a slight imbalance, but it's the same thing. A proton has a slight imbalance. That means it can attract some more energy. So it will attract some more energy to spin around it. That's an electron. But an electron is not a particle. It's just a bit more energy that spins around a proton, or connects to a proton. It creates a different frequency. But a proton is still the same as a neutron. And a neutron is just very delicate, so it doesn't last very long. A neutron is perfect balance. So you can only hold a neutron in an atom. If a neutron and a proton get together and some electrons, more energy is still pure fluid energy, electricity. See, this is where we get it wrong. We talk about electrons. It's not an electron, it's electricity. An atom is a particle, a neutron or a proton, surrounded by electricity, not an electron. It's just a particular quantity of electricity. That's why we call it an electron. But it's not a particle, it's a particular quantity. You see, these are frequencies, harmonics, and different frequencies are different energy levels. So we're thinking that, oh, that's particles. Again, that's where it's become quantum, but quantum simply means it's an observation of energy levels. It doesn't mean that's all there is. There's particular energy levels that work in an atom, that's it. But that energy is still pure fluid. Outside of that, any frequency is, possible. So an electron is just a particular quantity of pure fluid electricity required to balance an atom. So now we've got an atom, that's matter. And this gives an illusion of mass. You see, there's a mass to this. When you've got this circular wave, this is a magnetic field, creates this, a vortex. This magnetic field creates this illusion of a substance, a structure. So that's what mass is. Mass is created by the magnetic field. And when you get all these atoms together, you build up material structures. And that's what mass and how the illusion of mass is created. Mass is an effect of the magnetic field when the magnetic field is creating these self-sustaining particles. So again, so there we go. The ether, a divergence of the ether becomes energy. Energy is a frequency, a vibration of the ether. When this frequency as vibration hits a particular frequency, a self-sustaining wave is created. Now we've got an atom, which is a material substance. And all atoms come from hydrogen. Everything is just a compound of hydrogen. So all we need to do is explain hydrogen, then we explain matter. But what's interesting now is you've still got ether, pure spirit, and you've got matter. They're both the same thing, and the way I like to see it is, the way I talk about it is ether is pure fluid. The material world is crystallized. It's like it's crystallized ether. You see, once you've got these particles, these atoms, they're locked. They're locked. Again, this self-sustaining wave of a particle, it's the energy, pure fluid energy moving round and round. It's trying to return to inertia, but it can't. It's trying to collapse, but it can't. It's going round and round like an orbit. When you get in orbit around a planet, it just keeps going. But if you change the orbit, it collapses and it'll crash. At the right frequency, the orbit just keeps going round and round the planet. That's what we've got here. It's the right frequency, so it's a self-sustaining dynamo. And once you've got all these atoms locked together in crystals, that's why I like crystals, this is the most stable form. Now the atoms are all locked. You can't do anything. This will not return back to ether. It's stuck. This is crystallized ether. The atoms in these crystals, they want to return back to energy, but they can't. They're locked together. They're crystallized. That's what we've got, a material world. That's why it's objective. Any one of us can come and see this crystal, we'll see the same thing. My soul spirit is pure fluid. It's ether, only ether. This body is now crystallized ether, but it's not quite as crystallized as these crystals. This body is still changing, growing. So my soul spirit is still creating in this body. I'm creating energy through this physical body. This is the end result, crystallization, the end result. The only way these atoms can return back to the ether is if I heat them up. I heat them up so hot, and then I've got to, you've got to bash the atoms. You've got to destroy every single atom. So a massive amount of energy is going to be required to smash up all the atoms in here so that every single standing wave, every neutron is burst, and then the energy can free float back to inertia. See, that's what an explosion is. An explosion is entropic. The energy that is already trapped in the matter is released. You see, even if you, again, let's look at a nuclear bomb. We think, well, we're destroying the atoms. Again, I've got to talk about nuclear power one day. I think it's not as straightforward as they talk about. But let's just say nuclear bombs, you're destroying the atoms. You think we haven't created energy. Remember, the energy is locked in the atoms. It's still entropic energy. The energy came from the ether. It turned into electromagnetism, and at a certain frequency it turned into atoms. Then the atoms locked into this substance. Now the energy is here, it's trapped. It wants to go back to inertia, but it can't. You explode it. Now you've allowed it to release. Where does it go? The explosion goes out, 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 dissipates, and all the energy is going back to points of inertia. It's dissipating back to the ether. But that is the technology we've got. The real technology I'm talking about is the technology of soul spirit. How do we create the energy in the first place? How do I create electromagnetism? I mean, look at it here. This empty space between my hands. There's nothing there. Well, let's just say there's nothing there. Can I create a magnetic force right here with my hands? Can I create it? From the ether. Now, you might be able to measure this. It'd be so tiny, but I might be able to create a magnetic field just here in the space between my hands. I actually create it. So I, ether, pure spirit, am creating a tiny disturbance in the ether, a tiny magnetic field. Just tiny. That is the creation of energy. Now, how do we do that in a big way, in technology? That's another question that I'm talking about. But I'm talking about the philosophy, the principle of it. And because we can only do tiny, that's why we need a body. This body is a relay system. I'm creating tiny bits of electricity, but the body relays it. It's a mechanism to translate the energy into something more powerful. See, if I want to lift up this shell purely with spirit, I can't do it. I might just create a tiny magnetic field on it, but not enough. So I need a body to let me lift this up. But this body is simply a relay mechanism for spirit. Spirit relays through the body to do an action in the material world. So to sum this all up, everything is pure fluid ether, one substance in the universe. But this one substance is pure spirit, and it manifests through electromagnetism. Electromagnetism becomes the neutron. From the neutron, all matter appears. And now you've got an interesting play, an interaction. Spirit can interact with matter. So the ether can interact with crystallized ether. So we don't have this problem of dualism. How does spirit and matter, how can we interact? Well, we can interact because we're the same thing. I am pure soul spirit. This is a lump of inert matter. But we are the same thing. This is crystallized ether. My soul spirit is pure fluid ether. It's still ether. Again, spiritualists, they say the soul and body, I don't care about the body, I'm the soul. No, the body and the soul is the same thing. The only reason I've got a soul is because I've got a body. The body and the soul come together. Now you can train your soul spirit to live on, that's different. But you need a body. The body and the soul, this personality that I've got, comes together with this body. The spirit is beyond personality, it's abstract. I've got an ego, a personality that comes together with this physical body. So the soul and the body are still both ether. It's a unified, holistic model. And it's a bigger step to take this into practical technology, but I do talk about it, so check out my channel, and I will talk about this more. But to sum it up again, once more, the ether is inertia, spirit, pure potentiality, metaphysical. From that there is a desire. The desire creates a disturbance, a vibration in the ether. That vibration in the ether we can call electromagnetism. And that electromagnetism at a particular frequency creates a self-sustaining wave which we can call a particle. This particle creates an illusion of mass. This circular magnetic field has a particular effect. And there'll be two of them, neutron and a proton. So again, it's still in yin and yang. Electricity, magnetism, neutron, proton. There's always these pairs, very, very interesting. And then from there, all substances can build up. And then you've got an interaction. You've got an interaction between spirit, you've got interaction between energy, feelings, and the material world. That's what we've got. So I hope this made sense. Please do leave me any questions or comments below. Again, it's just my ideas, the way I think about it. But this is serious philosophy. Don't dismiss it. This is ancient philosophy, and I'm trying to come at it again with a new angle, and I'm trying to make this understandable. So please bear with me. Do subscribe. Give me a chance. I will get better and better at explaining this. So thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you in any of these other videos here.